motion for the October 3rd minutes?
I'll move that we accept, that we approve the October 3 minutes.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
I had one thing. I wasn't at the meeting, but I saw the next day there was a request to that Lori asked our attorney to send a letter to the Learning Collaborative, and if that was done in executive session, if that decision was made in executive session, I think that needs to be shown. I'm just thinking it's time to start shedding some daylight on that enterprise. That letter that went out from the lawyer.
No, Lori wasn't in executive session. That was done.
So where was that decision made to send that last letter that went out on October the 10th?
That was something that we had. Well, did we do that?
We discussed it at the previous meeting, right? And then it hadn't been done
And then we decided to
have it get sent, right?
send. Right.
I think. I don't remember going into the executive.
Right.
So there was an executive
There was
session
an-
at that. Was it about the collaborative? Just before you started your meeting?
It was about.
That's right, it was ahead of time, that's right.
It was
We
about
met
a
earlier.
real estate matter. Yes. A legal matter, pending legal matter. So,
But no action was taken in that?
I don't believe that's where we decided to have the
I can't
attorney
remember.
talk.
Can't remember.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look at my notes, I guess.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye. Okay, can I get a motion for the 17th meeting?
I'll move. We approve those minutes.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, now warrants 9 and 9P.
I'll move that we approve warrants 9 and 9P.
Second?
Discussion?
You saw the big bill to state of Vermont. There was $7,600 some odd dollars. That's the fee for the Act 250 application. Half of it, Putney paid the other half. Renaud's third will be credited in gravel, just like the other expenses. So that's the new fee that we were surprised by. Our original fee was going to be something like a quarter of that, but they changed their rules without notice, and there was no grandfathering in or anything else. So it is what it is. Corey tried mightily to get that changed, but there was nothing to be done about it. So.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Tom, can I use your blue pen? I've got a red one, just to sign this. All right, visitors, anybody have anything they want to bring up? Okay. Moving right to the highway report, or the review the cemetery bid sheet. Did everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's happy with that?
Happy with it.
We should be getting bids. Okay, Renault gravel pit update.
Can we stay on highway report for just a second? Lee called me earlier about on Dummerston Station Road. I don't know if I brought this up at the last meeting. The Lillian Fowler, who lives the first place on the left on Dummerston Station Road, as you pull in there, it's a Feller's old place or Fennell's old place. They've been getting water coming down their driveway off the road. And they were seeing an oily sheen in it during those heavy rains last month. And I stopped by and looked at it, and so did Lee. We couldn't really tell if it was like coming from trucks, maybe the trucks that were going in and out of there had that, or if it was oil at all. So they collected a sample. We're going to have it tested. Their well is right there. And she called me again just before the storm and said that Lee had talked about putting a berm there to prevent any more runoff from coming, and he hadn't gotten around to it. So Lee immediately went over and did that before the storm came. And I'm not sure what the town's liability is or responsibility is here. It's the way it's always been. It's not like the town went and did something different and has changed the way the water's moving off the road. Where the well is located is closer to the road than you'd be able to put a well now under current laws, but it is where it is, and I think the concerns are legitimate. So, and I just wanted to bring it up at the meeting so it's on record that we've looked at it, we've been talking with them about it, their next step was to test this sample that they took out of this puddle, so that they can really identify what it is that's in it. So there's really no action to be taken. I just wanted that to be on record that we've been in that discussion.
Where were they going to have it sampled?
Well, that was the
Or
question.
tested?
That was the question. They didn't know. Lee thought that the extension service might have something. If anybody else has any ideas, I'll pass it on to the followers. But
All right. Yeah, I'll look up the Department of Health. You know, someone in that bureaucracy might have some information.
yeah, it'd be nice if it was a place where they can get it done free, and maybe if I don't know how involved we can or should get with this right now, because again, I'm not sure where the town's responsibilities are with this.
You also have a lot of runoff from Route 5 right there too, so
Yeah, I mean they are in a low spot there, no doubt about it.
if there was oil dropped on the tire on Route 5 or...
And when she first talked to me, it hadn't rained in a long time, and then we had that big rain, and lots of stuff comes off the roads then,
Right.
and
particularly your oily tires
Right.
from the heat of the summer.
And by the time I went over to look at it, I couldn't see a sheen. There was definitely silt and things, and I don't know. But because there are wells involved, they're concerned, and I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we should be doing, and giving them good advice. Otherwise,
Gravel pit update.
you saw my my letter to Bob Fisher, as per our discussions in here about getting the lease agreement with Mike amended to limit the town's liability to just the pit activities, and excluding the campground and other things on the property, and also to take a look at the since the DRB decision asked for 1/3 of the reclamation cost of the pit to be bonded by Renault, because he's responsible for 1/3 of the cost. It's difficult since it's a rolling reclamation. We're going to be reclaiming as we go, like over 20 or 30 years, like what that actual cost would be, how it could be accounted for and divided by 3. So we discussed this a little bit at our last meeting, that perhaps there's a way, some language that we can put in the lease that would allow us to do something like a yearly review of reclamation, to define what is reclamation activities. Is it resloping? Is it reseeding? And to take an accounting of it year by year, and have the lessor, which is Renault at the moment, but that could always change, responsible for 1/3 of those costs on an annual basis. That way, when we get to the end of the project, it isn't like there's some $80,000 bill that we're trying to collect money on. By the time we get to the end, it'll be a very small job left over as far as the reclamation goes, and perhaps through that kind of language, we might be able to avoid Mike having to bond for what is really just a spitball number. We have no idea what those running costs of reclamation would be. But since we have DRB members here, maybe we can discuss that now, because it kind of rolls into another issue that we need to discuss, which is Mike, after looking at the DRB's decision, decided that the fence requirement was burdensome and unnecessary, and he wanted to appeal that. I spoke with Lou about it, And Lou thought there might be a way to take care of it in what's called a reconsideration of the thing, of the decision. Just in the last couple of days, their attorney was going to draft this letter, but he could find nothing in statute that supported this process of reconsideration. So his advice was, let's just appeal it to the environmental court. That due deadline is the 12th of this month, of November, and the DRB, if I recall, Lou, was you needed a letter by tomorrow for this reconsideration, and so that's what I know about it now. And Lou, I know you've had more recent discussions with Charlotte and Corey since then, so if maybe you could tell the board what our next steps should be here.
Ultimately, it's up to the applicant and the select board to the extent that you're involved with the applicant. But I think certainly to reserve his options and rights, probably getting the appeal is the thing to do. The DRB decision, and Herb can correct me on this because I don't have it in front of me, but on the fencing or on the bonding requirement, it includes a provision that if the towns accept responsibility for the reclamation, contrary to what the lease agreement currently says, where it's 2/3, 1/3, then the bond requirement wouldn't apply, since it would be a town responsibility ultimately, and you'd be giving a bond to yourself in essence. And how you worked out the financial aspects of it, if Mike is going to be responsible for 1/3 of it, would be between you and Mike, whether it's in gravel or however, or on a year-by-year basis. But that's what I recall of the bonding requirement, that there is that provision that if we looked at the lease agreement, we looked at the bylaw requirements for bond, and it seemed clear that if 1/3 of the reclamation responsibility is Mike's, then we should ask for 1/3 of it to be bonded. But if that changes to be all town responsibility, then we would waive it in the same way we did for the Carpenter Pit, because it would be town. And then you could work out whatever side agreement you want.
All right, so that, great. Well, that's more than the select board's responsibility to make sure that the town's financially protected from whoever the gravel operator is.
And reflect that in whatever changes you make to the
Right,
lease
okay,
agreement.
good.
As to the fencing requirement, and again, Herb may remember better than I, but we felt that a fence was appropriate, both for a safety and security basis, and for just the south edge of the pit. And in fact, there was already a requirement for such a fence in the original permit for the campground. At the time, I think it was maybe more to protect the pit from trespassers or from unauthorized access than it was as a safety issue for the campers. But in any case, it was the same idea that what was then the moor pit was to the north edge of the campground, meaning the south edge of the moor pit, would have a fence. And that fence apparently was never put in, but is still a standing condition on the campground. So we saw that, we said it was a good idea, and that we wanted to retain it. What we didn't say is the details of the location of the fence, whether it would be a fence that was at the ultimate south boundary of the excavation, or whether it would be a fence that could march back as the excavation proceeds. We felt that would be something that you would work out that would make sense for both the operation and the campground.
Well, perhaps if that's the case, because that was the mainly thing, is it was unclear exactly, and I hear now that you left it purposefully unclear.
Well, as to that sort of detail.
Right.
yeah.
That's what's needed from Mike and the rest of the parties is a clarification. If it is a marching fence, as you put it, that's the very idea that they're talking about. And I don't want to get out ahead of what they want to present to the DRB, but this sounds like the nature of the conversation that we'd like to have with the DRB. Now, I heard today that you guys weren't going to meet in November. Is that the case?
It looks like we probably will meet in November.
Okay.
We have an issue that's possibly coming in tonight, so we'll have just enough time to get it and notice it. So we probably will have a meeting.
Well, our timeline is that if it's the Act 250 permits have been filed now, or application I should say, and we're hoping for a quick resolution of that, and so then they want to start digging a road if we get those approvals. So can we get some kind of a will you meet this month for us if
Sure.
I think because that's really the question is.
Yeah, we still have to notice it, but we have time to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So and you need a letter from.
We need something that says, what do you want?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be involved.
Okay, and that can go to you.
It can be filed with Charlotte or with her.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, I'll make sure that happens tomorrow then, and so that was it. It just got a little unclear today, and that's why all these phone calls went around. Because once we brought in people who hadn't been a part of this, they said, "Well, we don't know anything about a reconsideration process, and we can't do it that way."
And that's correct. There is nothing in the statute that spells out a reconsideration process. There's nothing in the DRB's rules of procedure that spell out a reconsideration process, but we have on a number of cases had questions of clarification or changes or whatever where we've handled however seemed to be fair to everyone to get a clarification and if necessary an appropriate amendment.
The S&B gravel pit issue, we wrestled with the issue of bonding well after the original decision.
Mm-hmm.
We came back and did a reconsideration of that.
I see.
So there is a precedent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And several others that are, all the circumstances are always different because cases are different.
Good. Yeah, and towns are different. Brattleboro does these from time to time. I'm told they have a different word for it, or it was kind of like that draft review that we had spoke about. That's sort of their solution to this kind of thing. This is a little different way of doing it, but it gets to the same place.
And the next time we look at and update the rules of procedure, it's something I think that we need to address in a little bit more structure.
But it may be a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just add a couple comments about the fencing. And when we made our decision, there were two things that we considered. First of all, it was part of the original Act 250 requirement that had never been completed. And secondly, we felt that the town and all the other parties would be exposed to a certain amount of liability with a campground and young people running around in a pit. And that was the reason for reinforcing that original requirement.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm a little confused though. The original requirement was for the campground. The campground never had a gravel pit on it, besides when the state took it out years ago. That was S&B, which is not on the campground's land, as far as I know.
That's true.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's a totally different.
But when they got their permit for the campground, the Act 250 required they put up a fence between the end of their campground and the next property.
And
Right.
that was actually, I was involved, I think, in that at the time, and that was actually requested by Poplar Commons, so the campers didn't meander over into their properties.
No, I
Had
think
nothing to do with the pit.
This is a fence on
The
the other
south,
side.
on the south side,
But
right?
it was also
Lou
on
was
the
just
north side.
talking about, he wasn't sure if it was for Poplar Commons to walk into
No.
the campground or the campground to go there. That original fence was to keep, on the south end of the property, was to keep campers out of Poplar Commons.
Correct, on the south side,
Right.
but then there was a fence on the north side, and according to the findings anyway, it was concerned with campers going into the moor pit.
Yeah, well, that sounds like something that got overlooked in our research of the existing Act 250 permit. I wish that had been spotted because it should have been addressed in our application. So I'm glad we're able to revisit this
Yeah,
now.
and in my review, I didn't find it in Act 250, although I didn't research that file, but I did find it in the town file for the case that Steve is recalling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the exhibits to the current approval.
Just so I understand, the requirement for the fence was on SB Land's Act 250 permit, or it was on
No,
the
on
campground?
Hidden Acres.
On the campgrounds,
On their original permit, there was supposed to be
Conditional
a
permit.
fence on the north side of their property.
right.
Mm.
I remember there was the old gravel pit that I think you're talking about that people hauled gravel out of years ago,
Right.
and I think that needed to be fenced, but I don't recall any of that.
Does that campground predate the interstate? Has that been there? that
No.
long?
No.
No.
No, that hasn't been there that long.
I can't remember for sure now the permit, but there was, yeah, it isn't that old though.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Time.
I had another question, or concern on the gravel pit. I know we keep having Mike being able to pay his share in gravel, and I'm just wondering how much gravel we can use. At some point, maybe Mike's gonna have to come up with some funds, because, you know, when you talk about the original permit and the engineering cost, and then the Act 250, and then the reclamation, I mean, at some point, I don't know if we can use how much gravel his share would be. Have we thought about that at all?
Well, when will we stop using gravel?
But the reclamation is ongoing. We've already fronted the engineering. We're going to front the Act 250.
Yeah, well, it's not like, you know, if it comes up, say he owes us 10,000 yards of gravel that year, it isn't like we have to take it that year. It would just go on the account like with all the others, just a riding account. So it's either additional gravel that we take, or it's just gravel we take that we don't pay for, which I think is and I'd have to read the lease again. Every time I read that thing, I learn something new. What it's doing is it's essentially the amount of gravel that we're able to take out of there is sort of a set number.
Right.
What Mike is doing is giving us credit for yards of gravel.
Extended years of gravel.
Right, which it's not laid out where and when the towns can take that credit, which is it's funny as we vent all these a lot of discussions and things that come up that you wonder why we didn't talk about this, since we did talk about it for a year. Does that mean if Dummerston has a rough year, we say, well, guess what, Mike, we're going to take our 20,000 yard gravel credit this year. All at once. That's something that bears discussion. And now that we're cracking the lease back open, it might be a time to have.
Because you got the road, and his share of the road is in. I just look at it and I think, I mean, that's a pile of gravel, and we're fronting all the money now.
Mm-hmm. Well, the part of the mechanism the town worked out in the lease is the first 5 years of the lease is a very low lease price. It's just a step up from what we're paying at the Carpenter Pit. The reason for that is that we didn't want the town to incur not only a jump in their gravel price, but to pay back on this $75,000 that we're borrowing to do it. So Mike agreed reluctantly in those negotiations to give us that sweetheart deal for 5 years while we pay off our loan. And then the price will go back up to the equivalent of $4 a yard plus inflation, which is where he wanted to start in the first place. So we did get that accommodation in there in terms of repaying us for our fronting the cash up front. But in the, over the life of the pit, our share of this is only going to be a third, one way or another. Whether it's because we take more gravel or we don't pay for some of the gravel that we take, it does work out in the rate of return of the pit.
Anything else on the pit? Okay, moving on. Correspondence for information. Anybody have anything there they want to bring up? Okay, correspondence for discussion and action. Invitation to the hazard mitigation plan meeting on November 12th.
So, I don't know if anyone spoke with Lori about this.
Yes, I've got it right here.
Okay. My understanding is that FEMA, we're waiting for FEMA to approve the town's hazard mitigation plan, and until they do that, there's not a whole lot we can do at this meeting on the 12th.
Right, she was, I guess, they wanted to get Dummerston to go because Dummerston hadn't done anything. And Lori sent this Dina Reed our information with corrections on March 28th of this year. Waited for corrections, she hasn't gotten anything. And so on August 14th, she called to get a check on the status, and they said, well, it's still with FEMA. And so I don't know where they think we're not doing our part when she's been calling, and it's not in our hands right now. The corrections have to be made.
Right.
So what's happening at this meeting on November 12th? That is this something that we've done that they're asking us to do again, or
No, it's just it's for it's actually towns that are not in the it's Putney.
It's an informational meeting, from what I understood,
Right.
more on mitigation of rivers and roads, and it was addressed to you, Tom.
I was gonna say, you
You
should.
poor guy. And I had some interest in going, actually, until I learned from Lori that she was waiting to hear back from FEMA on their
Right. So it's nothing that
plan
we really
anyway.
need to,
So
we need to go to anyways.
Yeah. She explained that she's been beating on this horse
Right.
for a long time,
I think we've done and Lori's done her like
and
work. It's
right.
just
No, yeah,
FEMA
I did read that.
isn't responding.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm not sure there's any need.
For us.
I had some interest in going, but I don't know that it served any purpose. Really.
Should we have our EMD go at least, so we've got somebody in the room?
Probably wouldn't be a bad thing. I can give him a call and ask him if he wants to go. All right. Anything? Requests, unfinished business. Request from delinquent tax collector. The Verkstises for 2008 penalty and interest of $471.51. Everybody read that?
Mm-hmm.
All that information on there.
Yeah, we tabled that last meeting because there was only 3 of us here, and we felt it would be better if the whole board had some input.
Well, I would, to get us moving, I move that we reimburse the Verkstises the penalties and interests that they request.
Okay, I'll second that.
Discussion? Nobody wants to discuss it?
Well, my understanding is that our delinquent tax collector has recommended we do this.
Well, she's also contacted VLTC, and it's highlighted right here. If I were on the select board, I would not be approving any order for any refund in this situation. That's from Garrett Baxter at Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. My issue with this is when we have people, even when we were on the PCA, people come in, a lot of people's taxes now are put right in with their mortgages. So, and
Right.
so the bank is supposed to pay the town. And we've had several people come in where the bank hasn't paid their taxes, and they get the penalty. And we've always said to them, your taxes are due, and this is when they're due. You'll have to take it up with the bank. And they've had to go to the bank, and you know, the banks have paid the penalties for them and interest. But to me, it's the same thing. You get your tax bill. They received a tax bill, and if you have an issue with your tax bill, I would be going, if I got a tax bill and I didn't agree with it, I would be going up to the town clerk's office and saying, what's going on here? I should have been getting money back. Because with the Act 60, I guess it's right on your tax bill. If you get the prebate or rebate, it tells you what your taxes are. And then it has a thing telling you how much your prebate or rebate is. And this is how much you owe. And it's not like it's something that's hidden from you that you wouldn't know that you were getting it or not getting it. It's on your tax bill. So when you get that tax bill, you know what you're paying. You know that's what you owe.
Well, this is different information than we had last meeting. I
Yeah.
think the way I understood it last time was that they had done this online, and that the message that they got was, you know, job done, you're good to go. But it was only referring to the one part of it and not the other, and they had no way to know that. So they felt like they'd just, you know, been blindsided by a poorly operating, you know, poorly constructed website, which made me sympathetic to it. But I understand what you're saying.
And then they also went to small claims court, and
won
Got a
against
judge won
Vermont.
the state.
once
Right.
again,
But not for the penalty, just for the
Right.
payment.
And this right here is saying this. If you read that letter, it does say right in there they were still supposed to pay their taxes. You're still supposed to pay your taxes. You got your tax bill. It's on there. Your prebate and rebate. And if you have an argument with that, you get your tax bill in plenty of time to come make your issue, whether you're going to pay it or not pay it. It's not like, and if there is something that's different about that, the state will send something into the town. The listers have to look at it, saying, "Do you accept this prebate rebate?" It goes to the town. When the listers accept it, it goes to the town clerk. The town clerk sends out a new tax bill to the person. So they received a tax bill. They knew what their prebate or rebate was. They chose not to pay it. Assuming that the state had, if I've got a tax bill in front of me, I'm paying it, and then I'll argue with it afterwards, or I'll come up beforehand and argue it. So, really,
I'd be interesting to hear what our delinquent tax collector has to say about this.
Is she handy?
delinquent tax collector, you handy?
Didn't the state actually admit though that there was a problem with their program?
No, I didn't read anything there.
I thought I did that they had to correct their program, but maybe Pam, you know better than. Oh crap! Sorry. Should've shut that off.
So Pam, do you send out? Did they receive a tax bill?
They did.
And
it
it did.
It did not reflect a payment, a state payment of any sort on it. I'm trying to remember all the details. Because there is an opportunity for an individual to get a second. There are 2 times that the state will pay. They pay the first time if you file timely, and if you don't file timely, there could be a second payment made in September. But I'm trying to remember back then, that's 2008, correct?
Yes. Was that when it actually got sent to the people?
My recollection of this, when Dick came to talk to me about it, was, Dick, if the state accepts responsibility and will accept that they neglected and it was fault on their part, then I feel the town is obliged to give that penalty back.
But the state never did that. It went to court.
Right.
The state fought it. They still say they weren't at fault.
Correct.
And they were given their tax bill.
They were. Even Garrett Baxter at VLCT says the answer is no. They advise us not to refund that.
Right.
I come to you guys for your advice. You appointed me. This is my opinion and what I would do and what VLCT is saying two different things. So I defer to the five of you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
I mean, it's similar to the people that come in that have their taxes with the bank, with their mortgages, and the bank pays the mortgage.
Correct.
We make them go to the bank to get the penalty. We still charge them the penalty.
Correct.
It's the same, to me,
I mean,
it's
still
the same,
It comes out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Right,
That's
it's-
how you look at it.
right, it's the same thing as if the bank didn't pay the taxes. It's not these people's fault, and I'm not saying it's the Verks's fault.
Right.
But they did receive a tax bill. If they want if they want to get the penalty back, they should go to the state, just like we tell everybody to go to the bank to get their penalties and stuff from the bank. I mean, to me, if we give this back to them, it's setting a precedence that we should do it for anybody that, you know, the bank, so then the bank doesn't end up having to pay the penalty. The people won't have to pay the penalty.
That's what I was just going to ask. Is there any precedent for this, even if not entirely analogous to this specific situation?
No.
We've always, like I said, it
No,
comes
it
down to
doesn't,
we
it
make them
doesn't,
pay.
it doesn't matter who's responsible for the bill. If you miss that deadline, we assess the penalty and we assess the interest.
Well, this is different information, and your argument has
Yes, then
changed my
last-
mind. I'm ready
then
to,
last meeting, right.
to vote, you know.
Okay, is everybody else ready to vote?
I just, I'm
No, go
sorry I
ahead.
stepped out, but, so, Lewis's comment that if, when the banks accrue your taxes with your mortgage payment, that happens quite often, that then the person ends up having to pay the penalty if the bank ends up not paying
Well-
the tax.
I'll try to take people out of it.
Mhm.
If taxes go late and are delinquent on the 6th of February, we assess an 8% late charge, 1% interest. Regardless of who was responsible to pay that bill, those fees are assessed. The person then comes to me and says, well, you know, I mailed it from this post office. My mortgage company was supposed to take care of it, they didn't. I'm very sorry. This is how it happens. So it becomes the taxpayer's responsibility to sort it out as to why it didn't get here at one time. If it is a mortgage, if the mortgage company was responsible for it, then I advise that resident to take it up with the mortgage company, whether they're gonna increase their monthly payment on their mortgage to include that penalty and interest. I don't know that.
Right, yeah.
I only know that the penalties get paid and the interest get paid.
You're making me nervous. I signed up for your
Oh, no, don't worry
automatic
about that.
deduction. Can I trust you?
No, you
The worst part about it is the banks are doing that to all mortgages now. They're escrowing your taxes into any mortgage now, since what is it, April 10th? April of 2010, I think. The mortgages are your taxes are escrowed into your mortgages now. Zeke, did you have anything else?
No, the last meeting, 2 weeks ago, you were recommending, the information that we all had back then, you were recommending, as I recall, that we just go ahead and approve this refund to them.
I did, based on what I
The information we, okay,
told Dick. But after asking VLCT what their professional advice is to me as the delinquent tax collector, he says no. So when I feel in conflict like that, I ask and I come to you because you appointed me.
okay.
So, you know,
So if we decide, and the party here isn't happy with what we decide, can they then take it to the Board of Civil Authority?
no.
No, it's just done. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ask to have penalty and interest abated. You
Okay.
can ask for a portion of the taxes to be abated. But in this case,
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, I think my concern would be opening up a new door for people to appeal their penalties in the
Right,
future.
right. This is new information from the last meeting. It seemed cut and dry 2 weeks ago, but
I can tell you one thing, that even back in 2008, it was actually 2009, but everyone who receives a prebate or a rebate receives a notification in the mail that they have received it and that it will be applied to their taxes, regardless of whether it was filed timely or whether it was filed late. So I am surprised that they didn't get a notice saying that they were going to receive this prebate and it would be applied to their taxes. So to me, I've never seen anything like this happen. I've never actually, here in Dummerston, it's never happened before. So I honestly don't know what is the right course. That's why I came to you guys. But customarily, you'll get a notice in the mail that tells you that you've received X amount and be applied to your taxes.
Well, and I think it does open the door, because every year it seems like there's a couple cases of, somebody's envelope got stuck on a mail slot, or, there's always some reason, and it's like it's still always the taxpayer's responsibility to insure it. And when my taxes were rolled into my mortgage, I used to call you the day before every time, did they really get paid? Because I just was nervous about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, well, okay. Well, it seems clear to me.
So, anybody else questions? All those in favor? Oh, no, actually.
The motion is to
yes.
reimburse.
The motion is to reimburse. All those in favor of reimbursing, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Notification from Vermont Environmental Corp of filed appeal from John and Lori Tebow. Reference to DRB decision. Everybody saw that? Okay. All right. New business. Review and sign.
Louis, on that last item, will you accept comment on the Tebow appeal?
Yeah.
And we'll also chime in on this as he wishes. I'd just like to say that this was not an easy case for the DRB. There were a number of complicating facts and considerations involved, and that it's not a case that I don't think anyone took pleasure in not being able to approve, but based on the facts of the testimony and the ordinance requirements, that's where the DRB ended up. And I appreciate that any time that you have an appeal of a DRB case, there's a question of town attorney time and use of town resources to defend the decision. And I really do appreciate that. I don't know what to suggest other than a personal offer to assist you and the town attorney in any way that I can as an individual, knowing the facts of the case and knowing the bylaw pretty well. If that could be of assistance and minimizing the anguish for everyone.
Well, I think the town, we took the stance that we're not going to get involved with it. They're going to take it to the court. It's not going to cost the town anything because it's the Tebows against the court. The courts are going to look at the zoning in town, is my understanding. We'll take a look at the zoning in town and they'll make their decision from that. Our attorney's not going to get involved in it.
Okay. Does it work that way?
Yeah, well, that's
what I understood too,
That's because
unless I'm wrong.
right. VLCT said that,
Okay.
and I spoke to them, and they said if the select board decides not to do anything, they don't have to, and it doesn't cost the town anything. It will be the Tebows with the court, and the court will look at the zoning of the town and decide whether
So the town's testimony essentially is the DRB decision.
Decision, yes. We won't go to the court at all.
And the court won't just consider it a default?
No. No.
Okay.
No, that's,
Something.
VLCT said that, and that's what we got for information.
Is that an active decision that you have made as a board in the past on all appeals? Or was there board action specifically saying you were not going to get involved in this one?
No, that we just weren't gonna get involved with this one. I mean, it was, we haven't really had anybody ever appeal it that I've been on the board.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the last time this is.
You know?
I mean, I thought what happened, it went to the environmental court and they look at our zoning, they look at the decision and find out if the DRB used our zoning to make their decision, and if there's something outside of the zoning that they decided on, then the court would rule on that. That was my understanding, and
That's, yeah,
maybe I'm
that's what.
missed something.
I know that it is a de novo hearing, which means that the court starts over again. And I've never heard of one where there was just one side presenting to the court, but maybe the.
Well, that's where we were told that the
Okay.
environmental court goes to our zoning, and they look at our zoning, the town zoning, in what has been contested by the T-Bos in this case, saying whatever they disagree with the DRB decision on the zoning, and this environmental court will look at that part of the zoning and see if it's there, if it matches.
But don't we have isn't that what our town agent does? Just like sits there.
Harold Noodle?
Is Harold our town agent? No, I was just looking that up. I think that's why we have a town agent, so that we have somebody in the room that is, the town of Dummerston, but they don't do or say anything. I don't know if it's like the equivalent of a pleading no contest or what it amounts.
So
to.
we're not pleading no contest. We're not pleading anything. We're just saying
We're not.
here's our DRB's decision. Here's our zoning, and this is the T-Bos. It's all the T-Bos' expense at this time. The town has to take no expense.
The only other case that I'm familiar with in Dummerston here was several years ago, and over in West Dummerston, Stickney Brook, Janess Berry, and they're the town.
We did get involved with that.
Yes, you did, and you tried. Hopefully, the neighbor who was concerned carried the water in terms of the town's position, but the town was also involved. So I'm wondering, is there a town policy that you won't get involved in any of these cases?
No, there's no. We don't. I don't think there's a policy. I mean,
So how did you decide already on this one, and when did you do that?
We didn't take a vote.
we didn't take a vote. It
No.
was just a
There
consensus.
was no motion made.
There's no
one
motion
way or
made.
the
There was
other.
nothing made. I mean, if we
Okay.
want a motion, we can make a motion.
Yeah, if any one of us would have made a motion, then it would have been an action. If nobody makes the motion, it's not a decision to do it or to not to do it.
Okay.
It's just never
Well,
brought to it.
I don't relish your having to decide these things, but I guess my comment would be that the town needs to take serious the application of its zoning bylaw in a way that is fair and supports the bylaw. If you're going to have a bylaw, then you need to follow through on it. And in this case, there was town resources spent in considering this case. DRB gave it the best shot they could. They made a decision. Do you just walk away from it?
I don't think we're walking away from it. We're letting the DRB decision stand on its own. And the T-Bos have disagreed with part of it, and they'll have their day in court.
Okay. I understand. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Is that it?
Yeah, it is for me.
All right. Thank you. All right, new business, signed certificate of change to the 2012 grand list. There was 4 changes. There was some people changed from residential to non-residential, and vice versa.
I move that we sign the certificate of change.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anything else? Do we need to go into an executive session for anything?
Yeah, I would like to move we enter executive session and discuss a pending litigation.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Discussion on that? All those in favor on that?